I want to talk hoops with you because folks listening to Locked On Hoops know I actually think the world of Jerome Tang. He is a guy that started off in Texas high school basketball, actually outside the Houston area, and I think the world of him. I think he needs a big time year. Schedules got released on Tuesday as well. That was kind of it was the also ran as far as headlines go on
Yeah, wild,
Tuesday
right?
in
Big,
college
big day.
sports. Big day. I've got a couple of back to back, not like one day after the next, but certainly very close together games on Houston's conference schedule that got released that ruffle my feathers a little bit because I'm like, ooh, that's tough, that's tough, that's tough. But Kansas State kind of needs a good year. You see the schedule come out on Tuesday. How are you feeling, boss?
Yeah, overall, I'm definitely looking at it. I'm a little worried. I'm hoping that you're going to send me a box of chocolates on Valentine's Day because that's when we play Kansas State at Houston. But overall, I look at this schedule and we start off at home in Manhattan against BYU. And BYU has the huge hype next to their name this year, bringing in those top recruits. And what can they do? And then our first road trip is against Arizona. And I've known that Arizona's been always a good team. But if you looked at Arizona's non-conference schedule, and I know I said this off the air to you, but they play Florida on a neutral site, UCLA on a neutral site, UConn, Auburn, Alabama, and San Diego State. That is their non-conference schedule, an absolute gauntlet. So they're going to be truly tested. And then Kansas State has to go there for their first away game in Big 12 play. I agree with you. Jerome Tang talked on Monday, first press conference with the media. Lots to be excited about. There's some optimism. You can see some energy. Wasn't the same feeling that you had from Jerome Tang last season. It sounds like he really likes his new roster. I've been on and off, back and forth with this new roster so far this year. This offseason I've talked about, is there enough talent? Is it more talent than fit? Because last year with the roster, I thought there was a great amount of talent, but that culture and buy-in and fit just wasn't there, and that was ultimately the downfall. But it sounds like he is very excited for this new roster, said there's multiple leaders on this team. And of course, PJ Haggerty leading the charge. If he's an All-American, I think they find a way to get back into the tournament, something they haven't done the last two seasons.
Yeah, and frankly, I think that I love what Tang did when he first got there, and they've kind of been chasing that magic ever since. Hearing Tang say that makes me feel like it feels more like a Tang roster than maybe last year or two might have. You mentioned our meeting on February 14th. That starts a week from a place we're not going to say on a family program to me for Houston Cougar basketball, where they host Kansas State, who I think is going to be back this year. We'll see. But then they go to Iowa State on the 16th. Then they host Arizona on the 23rd, and then to Kansas and Fog Allen. They host Arizona on the 21st, and then to Kansas on the 23rd. That is potentially 4 really challenging games in a span of 9 days. They have a tough back-to-back in my head, or back-to-back in college sense, on January 6th and 10th when they host Tech and head to Baylor. And then I think I've got this, they go to Tech and then to TCU on the 24th and 28th of January. Those are kind of circled things in my head that look troublesome, problematic, however you want to say it. Houston's looking to go back to back to back, three-peat in the conference, and I don't think this schedule does them any favors. I will say, full disclosure, that I don't think I circle a game that they can't win on this schedule, but they've won a lot of close games the last handful of years, and you can only do that for so long before one doesn't go your way. Christian, is there any stretch of your schedule that strikes you as particularly daunting?
Well, first, I got to say, when you talk about you probably don't think any team is favored compared to Houston. I mean, there are reasons why teams like Kansas State have talked about trying to imitate the Houston model. You guys are doing it fantastic. But overall, I mean, I think the beginning of Big 12 schedule is going to be huge. Now, the non-conference, I think Kansas State will be a little bit tested as well. They do have to go to Creighton on the road, Indiana on the road as well. Potentially could be 2 AP top 25 teams when they do go after it. And what Jerome Tang said when he was asked why they scheduled those, he said, we're going to be playing multiple Big 12 teams with numbers next to their name this season in their town, in their home court. We got to make sure we're tested and ready to go. I think that's important because last year, their non-conference, they were terrible. They didn't start off strong whatsoever. They lost when they went to the islands to, I believe it was Liberty, if I remember correctly. They lost to some teams that they shouldn't have lost to. I don't remember the schedule right off the top of my head, but either way, it was just not the greatest non-conference. It was important for them to get back on board in the Big 12 at the beginning. They started off decent, but then there was peaks and valleys throughout the season. They just can't have that if they want to get back to the tournament. I do like the way the schedule is set up. Iowa State in Manhattan, not in Ames, but their only game. Houston on the road. That's a tough one as well. But other than that first beginning, BYU at Arizona State, I'm Utah and KU at home is pretty cool back and forth. And then you finish the Big 12 play at Lawrence. But other than that, if they can get a strong start to this one, find a way to take 2 of 3 in their first 3 games between BYU at Arizona or Arizona State, heck, even just one. If they went 1 and 2 in that stretch, I think you're in a really, really good spot moving forward. And the expectation for Kansas State is just make the tournament. It's not to where Houston standard is right now, where you guys are trying to probably, I'm guessing Big 12 championship is your standard, is your expectation, or maybe you don't even think about that. It's going deep in the tournament. But for Kansas State, getting to the dance is a successful year, and I think it's a great year and a must-do for Jerome Tang this year.
I look at Houston's schedule, and I should say last year they went 19-1. They're not going to do the 20-game schedule again anytime soon, so you can't repeat that.
Probably
right?
For the best, too.
They only play 18 games in conference play this year, so 19-1 can't be done. I don't know that it's a one-loss conference schedule. I will say that I'd imagine, just because I've seen my comment section when they lose multiple games at all, that if you start losing a couple of these conference games, you're going to have people like, what is going on in Houston? It's a lot of freshmen on the roster this year, which is unique for the Cougs. I'm going to say 15-3. And I think that's still being pretty optimistic. You look at the 18 conference games you've got and say what, Christian?
I mean, I'd be happy with 10 and 8, to be honest with you. I think that'd be great. Just getting over 500. I mean, even if you're at 500, I think that gets you, if you have a good non-conference and you're 9-9 in the Big 12, you're in the tournament. I think you are this year for sure. I mean, how many teams made the tournament last year? It was all the way down. West Virginia was the only team left out. I don't remember what their standings were. I don't have that in front of me, but I'm guessing that they were around that mark in conference standings. Now, either way, I think that if you go at least 500 in the conference, and West Virginia was 6-7 in the conference. There, I just pulled it up for you right there. No, I'm sorry, they were 5-4 in the conference. And I don't even know what I was looking at. No, I'm in football. I'm messing up this segment. Either way, I think you can find a way to get 500 in the Big 12. You're in a good spot, and I think that gets you in the dance, and that's exactly what you need. Whether you're an 8 seed, a 9 seed, a 10 seed, just one of those ones that just get in, whether you're fighting in Dayton as a first 4, I just want the opportunity for Jerome Tang to prove that he's still got it with this new team that he brought in the portal, a completely different kind of portal team that he's done over the last couple seasons. Didn't go and spend a bunch of money like the Coleman Hawkins experience a few years ago. Now we're finally getting a team that seems to be more fit, more unified, and more with leadership and defense, something that wasn't a thing last year for Kansas State.
I should point out that 10 conference wins is what they were 10-10 because of the 20 games. That's what West Virginia basketball. Good. Football is very clearly on your mind, though, Christian. What's on the docket this week for Locked On Kansas State for folks trying to tune in and see what's going on with the Wildcats?
Yeah, Kansas State is trying not to go 1-4, but they have to beat and give the first loss to UCF on Saturday. That'll be at 11 o'clock Central Time on FS1. Scott Frost is doing actually a pretty decent job with his team, just back in Orlando for the second time and first time in the Big 12. Need a huge bounce back for Kansas State. Avery Johnson needs to run the football. Chris Kleiman, I think, is starting to make his seat warm up. We talked about Mike Gundy at the beginning of this episode. It could be starting to get real warm for Chris Kleiman, especially if he loses to UCF, a game that I think is possibly, with the exception of that Oklahoma State game later on in the season, the easiest one that left on the schedule. So lots of stuff to be covered. We'll have you here on Locked On Kansas State.
The Houston Cougars head to Corvallis, Oregon, to play the Oregon State Beavers. I keep wanting to say Ducks. Oregon State Beavers on Friday night. Ducks will probably get me in trouble there. But they play Friday night at 9:30 Central Time. I want to notice and make sure everyone from UCF heard me said Central Time, not Central University, because that apparently upset them. And don't call them Golden Knights. This has been a crossover episode of Locked On Cougs and Locked On Kansas State. Make sure you subscribe and else you know when we go live each and every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. If you haven't gotten out of the Big 12 yet, go check out Locked On Big 12. That Drake Toll guy is talking banana. No, something over there. So we could check him out. I always end with the Go Cougs there. I know that you maybe don't, but salute to Christian. We'll call it good. See y'all.